Good afternoon. So, oh my God, I've finally done it. I've finally rewritten a scene in Lucian's Dragon when it was Andre's Dragon that's been bothering me for probably 2 years. About 2 years. About 2 years. Maybe even longer. Maybe even 3. So, in Andre's Dragon, now Lucian's Dragon, I had originally written that because if you look at my posts, I've been putting up animation and illustration ideas for when we turn Lucian's Dragon and with a little help from our friends and the Amber Rose, anything that involves the Kingdom of Elements or the Kingdom of Realms. They're the Kingdom of Elements, but it's talking about their realms. Um, to show illustrators and animators, like, this is kind of how I want this kingdom to look and that kingdom to look and this part and this and blah blah blah, so that I've got it was actually something that my ex taught me when he was showing me how to do my presentation for my dating app about making a storyboard, because believe it or not, the arsehole did actually teach me a lot of things. So if you look, I've been posting pictures so that when I'm ready to sit down with illustrators and animators and that, I can show them my storyboards. And then they've got like a visual concept of what it is I see in my head. So that's what I've been doing. Because my idea is that even though we will be reading out Lucian's Dragon over the radio, like every night we're going to do, like a half hour of reading a different chapter of the book. But then I want to get the book illustrated. I want to publish it as an actual book. I even know what I want the cover to look like, but I want it to look oldie worldy, and I want all the illustrations in it to be hand drawn. And I want it to be visually stunning. Um, so, I need a really good illustrator who specializes in sci-fi, fantasy, fairy tale like illustrations and all of that. So I've been building this picture together so that after the story's read out over the radio, we can bring the book out. And kind of what I'm hoping is that, when we replay the stories, once the kids and that buy the books, like in the Bible when they read out passages and stuff, and you'll say, turn to Luke 11:17 sort of thing, and then you open the Bible and you sit and read the bit that he's talking about, that he's going to read out. I like the idea of kids then, the second cycle round, when we do replays of the story, them sitting with the book and reading along with the book. It's a great way to teach kids how to read from a very young age. So, so I've been putting my storyboards together, and one of the things that's bothered me, that's bothered me, is that when I originally wrote Andre's Dragon, when he finally breaks into the Shadowlands, he has to use a special code, like a worded code, in order to open a secret entrance into the Shadowlands, because it's impenetrable. Because obviously, like, purgatory isn't easy to break into if you haven't committed a crime. So once he gets through to gets through the Shadowlands, like big, massive, steep walls where Jeb's castle was on the other side, he has to go through a passageway where he does battle with a Cerberus. And in the original story, he poisons the Cerberus, the three-headed dog that is Hades' dog. It's a three-headed, hellhound that belongs to Hades. And he poisons it because Anahita, when he first meets Anahita and she helps him on the quest by giving him the map, she gives him some potions and that to help him in case he gets sick and injured. But then he feeds it to the Cerberus and poisons the Cerberus, and the Cerberus dies. So then he gains access through the back passage into the secret entrance. Well, not secret entrance, but like hidden hallway to Jeb's castle, and hides out in his bedroom, right? And then they have the battle and the sword fight and the flip-de-floos and that, and then Jeb steps into the sword and dies. So then later on, I wrote the Soul Collector, and I made the Soul Collector Ruby, Detective Ruby. She was lieutenant in the beginning, but then she got a promotion to detective, and then I made her the daughter of Hades and Persephone. So she's half demon, half goddess. She's like the princess of the underworld, but she's also the princess of the forest, because her mother is Persephone and her grandmother is Demeter, the forest goddess. So then I made his Hades, her father, his pet, Trixie. And he's got this thing about trying to give Trixie a better public image, because he knows Trixie to be like this sweet little three-headed demon dog puppy thing that he just adores and worships, and wants to put little bows on its head and everything like that to soften this Trixie's public image. But he's also protective of Ruby, so he keeps trying to send Ruby out on investigations, for the Ministry of Souls when she has to, because she's a historical grief detective for the Ministry of Souls. He keeps wanting to insist that she take Trixie for backup. And then I thought, well, but I killed the Cerberus off in Andre's dragon. I felt incredibly guilty about it. I carried a lot of guilt about the fact that in Andre's dragon, Trixie had been killed. So then I thought, I need to write Andre's dragon, now Lucian's dragon. I need to rewrite it so that Trixie doesn't get killed. And then it just hit me. I was literally just watching something on YouTube where one of these stupid, how they do those AI stories that are so bad, they're embarrassingly bad. And I was born with a crown of bone on my head, and my parents fed me to this, and like really bad. AI cannot write stories at all. They lack imagination and empathy and intuition and all that, and they're just embarrassing. However, one of them gave me an idea of how I can rewrite this story, and it's going to be that when Lucian goes in and he comes across the Cerberus, because the Cerberus guards the door to the underworld, and it doesn't let anything in and doesn't let anything out that isn't supposed to be there. So nothing can escape the underworld because it has to go past the Cerberus, but nothing can get into the underworld because it has to go past the Cerberus, and the Cerberus sees everything. You like that, you can't get in and you can't get out. So he's like, the Cerberus is like the ultimate guard dog to the underworld. And the gods of the underworld, like Odin and Hades and that, and even Satan, take Trixie very seriously. But Hades is a little bit soft as well, and is worried about Trixie's image. That's how I've written it, because there's a little bit of comedy in the Soul Collector. So what I'm thinking is, how I'm going to rewrite it is that when he's at the gates to the underworld, he is going to get caught by the goblins and thrown into the pit with the Cerberus. But they don't know who Lucian is. They don't know who Lucian is. They don't know his birthright and his position. They have no clue who he is. They just think he's somebody who's been put in the Shadowlands, who's tried to escape. So they think, oh well, it's time to feed Trixie. Feed him to Trixie. So they throw him in the pit at the gates of the underworld to Trixie. And it's directly from Daniel, when Daniel was thrown into the den of lions, and they seal it up. And when they unseal it, he just walks out untouched. But then when the soldiers are thrown in, they get mauled to death. That. But what he's going to do, what Lucian's going to do, is that when he's taken into the pit, the Cerberus is in the corner watching him. He sees that the Cerberus has got a little baba, and the baba is injured in some way, and he's going to use Anahita's potion to fix the baby Cerberus, to help heal it and make it better, and so Trixie doesn't eat him. Trixie lets him past because he helps the baby. So it's taken me years to figure out how the hell I was going to rewrite it, and there it was, because stupid AI. I fixed the AI story and made it better, and in turn it helped me rewrite a whole entire chapter in Lucian's Dragon, and now I don't feel guilty because now he hasn't killed her, he's actually saved the puppy. So I'm so excited. I'm just, yep, so there you go. So that's what's going to be rewritten. I'm going to re-edit it once I get broadband and interwebs, and I can set up my laptop and everything, and I get to rewrite my story. Oh my God, it's going to, because in my head, I've already taken notes of right up until poop hit the fan for me. I had just gotten him to the Fire Kingdom. I've rewritten the whole Fire Kingdom chapter in my head, but in the book on my laptop, he was just about to get into the Fire Kingdom and meet Sal the Genie and all of that. He'd just come up out of the underworld, and Anahita was taking him to meet Sal the Genie. That's when, poop hit the fan with Martin, and, then I had to stop writing it. But I had rewritten all the chapters up to the Fire Kingdom, the end of the Fire Kingdom, in my head, and put notes down on my social media and that. And then a few months ago, like just for Christmas, I finished the Fire Kingdom chapter, the Air Kingdom chapter, the Ether Kingdom chapter, and the Creation Kingdom chapter. Like, it's all there on notes on my phone. And then I can sit down and go through it all once I get my laptop up and running, where I can sit and type it all out and rewrite it all, because I need to... I'm basically merging the Legend of Brehena Scythusa with Andre's Dragon to make it Lucian's Dragon. And yeah, so it all needs to be like torn down and started again. But I carried so much guilt about the fact that I realised I'd killed Trixie and Andre's Dragon. I thought I need to rewrite it, but I couldn't figure out how I was going to do it so that Lucian ended up not only not killing Trixie, but getting safe passage into the entrance to Jeb the Goblin King's castle. And this really badly written AI story just helped me figure it out. So not only have I shown this AI story out, but I've improved my own. And it also brings in a bit of the biblical, which is great. So yeah, so I'm proud of that. So when I'm because what I'm going to do is, I'm thinking like on a Sunday night, I'll get someone with a really incredible, like, theatrical radio voice to read out Lucian's Dragon, like do a chapter every night. Because that's what I used to do with Martin and the boys. Every time I wrote a chapter, he'd ring up every night from prison, and my boys and Martin would sit around the phone. I'd have the phone on speakerphone, and I'd read out a chapter every night of the story that I'd written. So when I get my radio show, that's what we'll do. I'll get someone sort of someone who would be able to read something like Lord of the Rings over the radio and it captivate audiences. So he has to have a really good speaking voice. The other thing is that I keep thinking that whoever does the voice for the grandmother tree when we do the Sunday morning matinee radio, I really want her to be African. I have it in my head, even though technically for me personally the grandmother tree is my Irish roots. Well, technically it would be my African roots because my African roots come from my Irish roots because I'm North African. But I'm thinking like Kenyan or Ugandan or Nigerian or I really want the grandmother tree to be like a mature, older, maybe like in her 50s or 60s, with a really beautiful, smooth African voice, but, speaks really good English. And her being the one to read out the stories for on behalf of the grandmother tree. But for my Quantum Menace sagas and the Soul Collector series, whoever reads out Lucian's Dragon on a Sunday night, story time, I'd like him to be someone who could read Lord of the Rings out on the radio and people would listen. I'm trying to think of someone in real life. I can't think. My brain can't think. It wouldn't be maybe someone like with a voice like Patrick Stewart. He would have to be someone I think who was a theatre actor. Not necessarily Shakespearean, but like a theatre actor. Maybe not as dramatic as, or maybe, like when I'm thinking of Night of the Black Sun, War of the Worlds, like Orson Welles. But I'm thinking someone that's slightly more, don't want to say, your Jean-Luc Picard. Patrick Stewart kind of can bring in that excitement when, there's the battles and when he's up against the Groot Slang and, he's fighting the Groot Slang as he's like shimmying along the near invisible wafer thin tower, trying not to be slashed and bitten by the Groot Slang and that, who can convey that kind of excitement over the radio, forcing you to use your imagination, but at the same time convey the emotion and feeling and compassion when he's with Anahita and they realise they're falling in love, sort of thing. So, so he has to have a kind of like Patrick Stewart-y kind of voice, I think. Or like Daniel Day-Lewis or Gary Oldman or something. But I think it would help if he had experience in theatre. But anyway, and I'm hoping he's like, his day job is like the bin man or the postie or like works in a corner store or as a butcher or something. I love that idea of just the ordinary average everyday guy being the narrator for the Lucian's Dragon series on the radio, because he just has the perfect voice. I'm hoping I'm going to be out and about once I get there. Once I get to Switzerland, I'm out and about doing my thing and I hear voices like coming out of shops and restaurants and all that sort of thing, and be drawn to their voices, and then I can go up to them and say, have you ever thought about doing any voice acting? I think you got the perfect voice for Ophelia or Barnaby or Otisha the Owl. Or do you want to make some money being a voice actor on my radio show, on my video game, in my animated series? Come along for an audition, here's my card. that sort of thing. So yeah, so I'm so happy now because I finally figured out how to rewrite Trixie so that she doesn't get killed, and she ends up helping Lucian. So thanks to a really horrendously badly written AI stories advert on my YouTube. So I'm going to go. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō.